Now what we have is C3, which is other material. It says other material cost $8.10 per radio. So for other material, there are no calculations. It says that other material which is consumed is simply 8.10. So far we have calculated three costs, which are 4.7, 0.128 and 8.0. The next clause says assembly labor. These are skilled people who are difficult to recruit and retain. Advert company has more staff of this type than needed, but is prepared to carry this extra cost in return for the security it gives the business. In certain companies, you do not terminate your employees because you know that it will be difficult to recruit them again or retain them, even if they are sitting idle and are not doing any work. The case over here is really similar. It says that advert company has more than sufficient staff and they may be sitting idle, but advert company is not terminating them because it thinks that recruiting them will be very difficult. But since the laborers are willing, the advert company is retaining them and they are not working, advert company should compensate them because the laborers are willing to work but they have no work to do. It further says it takes 30 minutes to assemble a radio and the assembly workers are paid $12.60 per hour. So for a radio, if I calculate assembly labor cost, it should be hours which I have paid to laborers multiplied by rate per hour. The rate per hour is $12.60. 12.60. Point to note here is that it takes 30 minutes to assemble a radio, and by 30 minutes we can say that 30 minutes is equivalent to 0.5 hours. However, the thing to note is that the last sentence says it is estimated that 10% of hours paid to the assembly workers is for idle time. So actually what happens is that laborers are willing to work, but at times they do not have any work to do. If you pay to laborers, let's say you pay for specific hours which includes the idle hours and working hours. You must pay laborers for idle hours if they are sitting idle at your request. Therefore, the hours paid will have two portions, which is working. For a single radio, it will be 0.5, and I don't know how much I pay for idle hours, but the equation which we will have is that since hours paid is equals to working hours plus idle hours. Let us assume that hours paid is X. For a single radio, we know that working hours are 0.5. For idle hours which I have to pay, it says it is estimated that 10% of hours paid to the assembly workers is for idle time. 10% of what? 10% of hours paid. And therefore it should be 10% into X. Now solving this equation and calculating the value of X will give us 0.5 divided by 0.9. This must be the total hours I must compensate to my laborers. And now solving it over here, we have 0.5 divided by 0.9 multiplied by 12.6, which is equivalent to 7. Last clause has something to do with production overheads. Now there is application of high-low method over here. If you do not have sufficient knowledge about what high-low method is, you must listen and watch my high-low method video lectures. I will directly be solving this part with an assumption that you have watched those videos or you have a basic knowledge about how to apply high-low method. It says that production overheads, recent historic cost analysis has revealed the following production overheads data: total production overheads and total assembly labor hours. Well, for month 1 the total production overheads are 620,000. Now care must be taken that total production overheads has two portions: fixed production overheads plus variable production overheads. Total production overhead has two parts: fixed production overheads and variable production overheads. You can either solve this question by forming two equations, or you can solve it through high-low method. I will make two equations, but solve the question afterwards in a high-low method approach. For month number 1, our equation will be total production overheads are 620,000. Let us assume that fixed production overheads are X. Variable production overheads vary with certain quantity or certain basis. Here we were told in the above paragraph, if you go through this second paragraph, it says that production overheads are currently absorbed into product costs on an assembly labor hour basis, and we are also provided with the information of total assembly hours. Therefore we can say that variable overheads will vary with number of hours. For month number 1, the total assembly labor hours are 19,000. Therefore variable production overheads will be 19,000, which is hours, multiplied by, let's say, variable production overheads per hour are Y. Actually this can be broken up into hours multiplied by variable production overhead per hour. So this will be our equation for M1 or month number 1. For month number 2, our equation will be 700,000 or total production overheads is equals to fixed production overheads, which is X, plus total assembly labor hours are 20,000 plus 23,000 Y. If you solve these two equations, you will get the value of X, which will be your fixed production overhead, and you will get the value of Y, which will be variable production overheads per hour. Okay. Now if I apply the high-low method approach, which I am assuming that you have basic knowledge about high-low method, we simply take the difference of amounts in both of these months, which is 700,000 minus 620,000, and divide it by difference in hours, which should be 23,000 less 19,000. This will give us 20 per hour, which will be our variable production overheads per hour. Now for a radio, if I come up over here and add my variable production overheads cost, variable production overheads are 20 rupees per hour, and on a single radio the laborers spend 0.5 hours for working on it. So the variable production overheads will be rupees 10. Now how do we absorb the fixed production overheads? We can take any 1 month's data. Let's say we take the data of month number 2, which has 700,000 total production overheads. This includes both fixed and variable. Now if we subtract variable portion from this, which should be minus 20 rupees into 20 is variable production overheads per hour, multiplied by 23,000 hours were spent in month number 2, multiplied by 23,000 into 20 is 460,000, and 700,000 minus 460,000 gives us 240,000. This is variable portion. We subtracted variable overheads from our total production overheads, and it will leave us with fixed overheads only, and these fixed overheads are for 1 month. To absorb fixed production overheads, we must calculate an OAR, and we must know the normal or budgeted hours. If you read the last line of requirement, it says fixed production overheads are absorbed on an assembly hour basis based on normal annual activity levels. The activity level is in annual terms. In a typical year, 240,000 assembly hours will be worked by Edward company. So we are provided with normal hours, which is 240,000, and keep in mind that these 240,000 hours are not for a single month, but they are for 1 year. So since fixed production overheads are for 1 month, we must first convert these hours into a 1 month data by dividing it by 12. This will give us 240,000 divided by 12 is 20,000 hours. Now we can compute our OAR. Our overheads absorption rate would be 1 month's overheads, which are 240,000, divided by 1 month's hours, which are 20,000, and 240,000 divided by 20,000 will give us rupees 12 per hour. We can use this absorption rate of fixed production overheads into our calculations. And now our last cost would be fixed production overheads, which will be 12 multiplied by 0.5, which is equivalent to 6. Now if we add 10, 6, 7, 8.10, 0.128 and 4.7, if we add all the costs together, the total of our costs will be 35.928. This is our expected or actual cost currently, which is 35.928. We also calculate our target cost. Our target cost was 35.20. Our current cost is 35.928. Our current cost or actual cost is higher than our target cost. Therefore, a cost gap exists, which is actual cost minus target cost, and the cost gap value is 0.728. So we should take measures to close this cost gap in order to reduce our costs from this value to this value. How do we close this cost gap, as was discussed in class. Thank you.